Sorry, my Discord crashed for a second.
Alright, welcome everyone. This is Comrade Hellas, and today we are going to have the final debate on Post-Stalinist USSR. I want to welcome everyone. Our moderator, Comrade Hellas. I want to welcome our moderator, Arjuna, and of course, I want to welcome Comrade King, who will be debating in defense of Khrushchev.
Yes, hello.
And
my name's Comrade King, and I'm a Marxist-Leninist YouTuber. I also make videos about Post-Stalinist USSR and other things about history, mostly socialist history and stuff like that. Yeah, just subscribe to my channel, yeah.
Alright, and of course we have our chat moderator, Comrade Kazariuko, formerly known as Finnish Maoist. He will be monitoring the chat, the live stream, so we don't get raided again. So, alright, let's roll. Arjuna, you may begin.
Okay, so we're going to begin with the opening statements. You get 90 seconds each. Comrade Hellas, you may begin.
Alright, thank you for that. It is quite important that we are going to debate the legacy of the post-Stalinist Soviet Union. The successor to Stalin, Nikita Khrushchev, was a revisionist who berated the legacy of Stalin and instigated major reforms to change the nature of the Soviet Union and the goals of the proletarian revolution. It is instrumental for us to understand that these changes have altered the past and are echoing to the future. His policies, internally and externally, his reforms on the bureaucracy and the Virgin Land campaign, and the policies of peaceful coexistence and peaceful transition have severely damaged and crippled the potential of the Soviet Union. He also brought major defeats in the Cuban Missile Crisis, the invasion of Budapest, and of course the Sino-Soviet split. Thus, it is instrumental that we are going to have this discussion and point out the misdemeanors of Nikita Khrushchev.
Alright, your time is up, so I'll just give you a few more seconds to finish up.
of course. It is instrumental that we understand his misdemeanors and hold a debate on what should we have done to stop it. That's all for me.
Okay, thank you, Comrade Hellas. Comrade King, I'm starting your timer. You may begin.
Alright, so I believe that Post-Stalinist USSR was not revisionist, so I have the opposite position of Hellas, and I believe that the USSR kept praising Stalin until 1987, and that they were still upholding Marxism-Leninism truly until around 1987, and yeah, also just a heads up, I didn't know some stuff about this debate, so basically I'll use I numbered my sources, right? So for example, when I'll quote my sources, I'll say stuff like source number 2 and not the names of the sources. We'll put the sources later in the pinned comment of the comment section, all right? So yeah, so you'll know then what sources we have, what sources I have and what sources Hellas has. Okay, anyway, that's
So,
okay.
are you
Let's
done?
move on. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. As that opening statement is done, and now we're moving on to the main section of the debate, where you two will get 210 seconds or 3.5 minutes to speak. So give me a minute to set the timer.
Okay, who goes
Okay.
first?
Since Comrade Hellas, you start the opening statement. Comrade King may go first. This section now, if I'm correct, is on
The
the secret speech and the denunciation of Stalin, whereas the city get 210 seconds. Comrade King, when you're ready, you can start. Timer
Alright,
set.
I'm ready. I
Alright.
believe that the secret speech and de-Stalinization were good and didn't denounce Stalin and didn't even remove his personality code. Sure, his personality code was toned down, but it de facto existed until 1987. Khrushchev praised Stalin in the secret speech even. Look up the word collectivization in source 2. He praised Stalin for collectivization, the construction of a socialist centralized planned economy. His ideological fight against Trotskyists, Zinovievites, Bukharinites, revisionists, and others, as well as the Great Purges in the secret speech. Look up positive role there or look in source 3. Khrushchev also justified all of Stalin's crimes, such as the deportations, by saying that those were just failed attempts of Stalin to protect the USSR socialism and working class interests in the secret speech. Furthermore, Khrushchev said on page 301 of source 4 that you can't be a Marxist without being a Stalinist, essentially calling everyone a revisionist who doesn't like Stalin. This happened in late 1956, so after the secret speech. Marx, Engels, and especially Lenin opposed personality cults. They defined them as appraisal of personalities. And Marx and Engels believe that they are Marxist in source 9. In source 9, whereas Lenin in source 10 called appraisal of his personality unpleasant and even harmful. So it was very Marxist-Leninist of Khrushchev to tone down Stalin's cult. I'd also like to address that Khrushchev didn't accuse Stalin of anti-Semitism. Khrushchev said, God forbid that anyone assert that a statement by him smacked of anti-Semitism in a quote by Hellas from our last stream. Essentially, that God prohibit anyone from from claiming a statement of him was anti-Semitic. In a nutshell, Khrushchev just said that Stalin made anti-Semitic jokes, which has been documented, as can be seen in source 11. And although the doctor's plot wasn't anti-Semitic, it was still fabricated according to a 1954 investigation under Malenkov in source 6. Okay, Hellas.
Are you done, Sika?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Comrade Hellas. When you're ready, I'll begin the timer. Hello?
Yes, Comrade.
All right, you may begin.
Alright, I'm beginning the
Right,
timer. You
on
may
the
go.
secret speech, as we see on the book Khrushchev Lied by Professor Dr. Grover Furr, we we can see clearly a pattern of Khrushchev, who is falsely accusing Stalin of a cult of personality. These allegations, of course, can be easily debunked. We all know that Stalin did despise the cult of personality. Furthermore, when he calls Stalin a dictator, we know that Stalin himself, no more nor less than 3 times, resigned from his position of General Secretary of the Communist Party, with the Central Committee denying his resignations, wishing him to stay as the sole leader of the Soviet Union. We know very well that there is a long list of quotations from Stalin in evidence of his opposition to the cult around him. As happens with great leaders, they are revered. The great leaders are revered and praised by the common people. That, of course, doesn't mean that Stalin wished this. Furthermore, we have Khrushchev condemning Stalin for anti-Semitic tendencies. Let me quote his exact words. Nikita Khrushchev wrote in his memoirs that, quote, "A hostile attitude toward the Jewish nation was a major shortcoming of Stalin's. In his speeches and writings as a leader and theoretician, there wasn't even a hint of this. God forbid that anyone else assert that a statement by him smacked of anti-Semitism. Outwardly, everything looked correct and proper. But in his inner circle, when he had occasion to speak about some Jewish person, he always used an emphatically distorted pronunciation. This was the way backward people lacking in political consciousness would express themselves in daily life, people in a contemptuous attitude towards the Jews. They would deliberately mangle the Russian languages, putting on a Jewish accent or imitating a certain negative characteristic attributed to the Jews. Stalin loved to do this, and it became one of his characteristical traits." Unquote. We do know as a fact that this is a lie. Let's see what Stalin has to say about anti-Semitism in particular. Quote, "National and racial chauvinism is a vestige of the misanthropic customs characteristic of the period of cannibalism. Anti-Semitism is an extreme form of racial chauvinism. It is the most dangerous vestige of cannibalism. Anti-Semitism is of advance to the exploiters as a lightning conductor that deflects the blows aimed to the working people at capitalism. Anti-Semitism is dangerous to the toilers. It is a false track which diverts them from the proper road and leads them into the jungle. Hence, communist and consistent internationalists cannot be irreconcilable and bitter enemies of anti-Semitism. In the Union of the Soviet Socialist Republics, anti-Semitism is strictly prosecuted as a phenomenon of hostile to the Soviet system. According to the laws of the Soviet Union, active anti-Semites are punished to death." This is his reply
your time is up.
to the
Just
Jewish
hurry up,
agency of
please.
the new
I
United
have a
States.
question. Can I quickly ask a question?
Just a minute, I'm finishing. Furthermore, we do know as a fact that his daughter-in-law, Yulia Melzer, was Jewish. He married Yakov Djugashvili, the firstborn son of Stalin. So Stalin had a Jewish daughter-in-law. And lastly, Stalin had his daughter also marrying Ivan Zvazhnizhde, who was Jewish from his mother's side. So we have 2 of Stalin's children marrying into Jewish people. And that's all I have to say. You can see that Khrushchev is clearly lying about anti-Semitic allegations.
Okay.
Can I ask a question now?
Keep it short, okay?
Didn't you say that we won't quote people in the stream because you wanted the stream to be only 40 minutes long?
You can do whatever you want with your minutes. You can quote, you can use any book citations, you can do anything with it.
Okay, fine.
All right.
So what will we do now? Will we now talk about peaceful coexistence?
The next subject is peaceful coexistence. Yes.
Won't we reply to each other's arguments?
We can do that at the end. I would also like to stretch out that Khrushchev used Krupskaya's Lenin's Testament, which is a fabricated falsehood writing of Trotskyists. So we can see a paternalism and a common arguments between Trotskyism and Khrushchevism. Now, I think we shouldn't bore our audience, and we should advance on the next chapter. And at the end,
Yep.
we can debate more freely, have like a free debate between us. Okay?
Okay,
Alright.
so that's
This-
peaceful coexistence up with. Now we're moving on to peaceful coexistence. Since Comrade King started on the secret speech, Comrade Hellas, you may begin.
All right. Give me a moment. I am.
Okay.
I am moderating.
Yeah, sure, it's fine.
I'm moderating the chat. All right. I'm urging our live stream moderator Comrade Kazariuku to take strong measures in case someone interrupts the debate. All right. This chapter will be about peaceful coexistence. Let me bring up my sources. I'm sorry for the delay.
Tell me when you want me to begin the timer.
Of course. And go.
It's begun.
Right. So we have Khrushchev in the 22nd Congress of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union. Revisionist Khrushchev and his clique developed their revisionism into a complete system, not only rounding up their anti-revolutionary theories of peaceful coexistence and peaceful transition, but also declaring their dictatorship of the proletariat is no longer necessary in the Soviet Union, and advancing the absurd theories of state of the whole people and party of the entire people. The program put forward by revisionist Khrushchev clique in the 22nd Congress of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union is a program of phony communism, a revisionist program against proletarian revolution and for the abolition of the dictatorship of the proletariat and the proletarian party. The revisionist Khrushchev clique abolished the dictatorship of the proletariat behind camouflage of the state of the whole people, changed the proletarian character of the Communist Party and the Soviet Union behind the camouflage of the party of the entire people, and paved the way to restoration of capitalism behind a full-scale communist construction. We will talk about the state of the whole people on chapter 4. Now let's talk about peaceful coexistence. I'm going to debate, I'm going to quote Hoxha here. Alright. As always, we must pursue a correct line, for we have a great responsibility to our people. We are Marxist-Leninist party, and it is up to maintain Marxist-Leninist stand. Whatever may occur, life has shown that we have never wavered. Therefore, not even a cannon can sift us now from the correct line our party is pursuing. Life has shown that they were not mistaken in opinion and attitudes toward the Yugoslav revisionists. We have been proven correct. If Khrushchev and company have adopted a different stand, not fighting the Yugoslav revisionists, that is the affair. That is the way they see it. But we, too, have the right to tell them our opinion. We have supported the declaration of Moscow meeting, not only on the Yugoslav question, but also on the questions such as the unity of the socialist camp, peaceful coexistence, etc. But on the other hand, concerning many questions included in it, we have had our reservations, which has expressed to the Soviet comrades, or we have adopted a stand in the press propaganda of the party. We are for peaceful coexistence, but in the way Lenin exceeded, not to extend it to the field of ideology, for this is extremely dangerous. As far as disarmament is concerned, life has confirmed it that imperialism is not disarming. On the contrary, it is arming more and more. Then how can we disarm? On the contrary, we must be vigilant. And so we are, and we have done well, on the basis of the line of the party has pursued. The people and all the communists are ready to rise against any danger of the aggression. There are some things which we can tell. The Soviet comrades are not in order. We can tell them, for example, that we do not agree with them when they do not expose the
You have 20 seconds left.
So, to the end, likewise, if we have any criticism of the others, we shall tell them openly and in comradely spirit, in a Marxist way. So we see clearly that the path taken by Khrushchev is destroying ideological contradictions between capitalism and socialism, and he surrenders this power to America. Furthermore, we can see clearly that...
Okay, your time is up, so just finish it.
Furthermore, we can see clearly patterns that he was defeated in the Cuban Missile Crisis, destroyed the Chinese alliance in the Sino-Soviet split, and invaded a sovereign state, Hungary, when they did not do his bidding. I'm going to continue in another chapter. Now I don't want to abuse my timer, so thank you. We can go to Comrade King.
Alright.
Comrade King, when you're ready, I'll begin the timer.
Alright, begin it now.
Go
Peaceful
ahead, begin.
coexistence. What? Peaceful coexistence is Stalin's, if not Lenin's idea, and I believe that Hellas can agree with me on that. He says, though, that Khrushchev's peaceful coexistence is different from the one of Stalin, and that Khrushchev's peaceful coexistence denies external antagonism and is a capitulation to the US. That's actually not true. There is no evidence of Khrushchev denying external antagonism or capitulating to the US or whatever. According to page 74 of source 12, Khrushchev said that denying external antagonism is in fact be a retreat from Marxism-Leninism. So he didn't deny external antagonism and didn't capitulate to the US, and even said there can't be complete harmony between socialism and capitalism. Let me quote him. In advocating peaceful coexistence, we of course have no intention of saying that there are no contradictions between socialism and capitalism, that complete harmony can be established between them, or that it is possible to reconcile the communist and bourgeois ideologies. Such a viewpoint will be tantamount to retreating from Marxism-Leninism. The ideological differences are reconcilable and will continue to be so. Anyway, let me now continue. Peaceful coexistence is about non-interference in the internal relations of other countries. It's what Stalin believed in. However, as Khrushchev said on pages 327 to 328 of source 12, let's say that the US does interfere in a revolution and tries to crush it, then the USSR will have no choice but to interfere in it as well, will help the revolutionaries, and will fight back against the imperialists and the capitalists. This doesn't sound like a capitulation at all. Also, his role in the Cuban Missile Crisis was justified, as exaggerating involvement that would have caused nuclear war. Also, he crushed revisionists in Hungary in 1956, so that was also justified. And also, the Sino-Soviet split actually happened because Mao wanted to be the leader of the only leader of the global socialist movement. And in 1955, according to the Russian Wikipedia article of the Sino-Soviet split, he even offered Mao to become the second leader of the global socialist movement. But yeah, that wasn't enough for Mao. So yeah, the Sino-Soviet split is Mao's fault. Also, I'd like to quote Khrushchev on you know on the pages 300 to 27 to 328 thing. Okay, let me quote him now. The system under which some states sell arms to others is not our invention. France, Britain, and the United States have long since been supplying arms to very many countries, and particularly to the countries whose governments take the most hostile attitude towards the Soviet Union. Therefore, we have nothing else to do but to act in the same way. We sell arms to countries which ask us to do so and want to be friendly with us. Apparently, they buy arms because they fear the countries which you supply with arms. That we are doing only the same thing, which you have been doing for a long time. If the Western powers want to come to agreement on this score, we are willing to do so. We said this as far back as 1955 in London and made a statement.
TK, your time is up, so hurry it up.
Okay, the Soviet Union is prepared to reach agreement that no country should sell its arms to any other country. If the countries of NATO, CENTO, and SEATO affiliated to the Western Bloc are prepared to conclude such an agreement, we shall welcome it. I'm done.
Alright, thank you. Alright, so now that peaceful coexistence is done, you can move on to peaceful transition.
Alright, so I start now, right?
Yeah, Kamala started on peaceful coexistence,
Yes,
right?
that's Comrade King's time now.
Okay, Comrade King, you may begin when you're ready.
Alright. Let me start now.
Okay.
Khrushchev wasn't a reformist. He believed in revolution, as can be seen in source 13. The quote by him is very long, so I won't read it out right now. I'll read it out at the end of the stream, as Hal has promised. However, he believed that it can be peaceful or violent, but if the bourgeoisie resists, then according to him it must be violent, and denying that is revisionist according to him. So Khrushchev did not believe that the peaceful transition to socialism is the only way to socialism. The belief that peaceful transition to socialism is possible is not revisionist. In fact, Marx, Engels, Lenin, Stalin believed in it as well. You can see Marx and Engels. That you can see that Marx and Engels had the same belief as Khrushchev in source 14 and source 15, so that revolution is the only way to achieve socialism, but that it can be peaceful or violent. But if the bourgeoisie resists, then it must be violent. Marx and Engels also held this position. Stalin believed that in that as well. He even went as far as saying that electoralism in peaceful revolution to socialism is how British communists should come to power in source 16. And also, let me quote Marx and Engels on peaceful transition to socialism. 1 second. It's source 14 and source 15. Okay, there you go. Marx led to the conclusion that at least in Europe, England is the only country where the inevitable social revolution might be effected entirely by peaceful and legal means. He certainly never forgot to add that he hardly expected the the English ruling classes to submit without a pro-slavery rebellion to this peaceful and legal revolution. Engels, Preface to Capital, Volume 1. The objective in the case under the consideration is the emancipation of the working class and the revolution transformation of society implicit therein, and historical development can remain peaceful only for as long as its progress is not forcibly obstructed by those wielding social power at the time. If in England, for instance, or the United States, the working class were to gain a majority in Parliament or Congress, they could, by lawful means, rid themselves of such laws, institutions as impeded their development, though they could only do so insofar as society has reached a sufficiently mature development. However, the peaceful movement might be transformed into a forcible one by resistance on the part of those interested in restoring the former state of affairs. If, as in the American Civil War and the French Revolution, they are put down by force, it is as rebels against lawful force. Marks the parliamentary debate on the anti-socialist law. Anyway, how much time do I have? I'm thinking about.
You have 40 seconds left.
Oh wait, all right. I think I can quote Khrushchev. 1 second. Our enemies like to depict us as advocates of violence always and everywhere. True, we recognize the need for the revolutionary transformation of capitalist society into socialist society. It is this that distinguishes the revolutionary Marxists from the reformists, the opportunists. There is no doubt that in a number of capitalist countries, the violent overthrow of the dictatorship of the bourgeoisie and the sharp aggravation of class struggle connected with this are inevitable. But the forms of social revolution vary. It is not true that we regard violence and civil war as the only way to remake society. It will be recalled that in the conditions
CK, your
that
time is up. Just make sure to hurry up.
all right. Okay. Yeah, this quote is too long. So, I might quote it at the end again.
Okay.
Alright,
If you're done, then Comrade Hellas, you may go. Tell me when you want me to start.
Thank you, and I'm ready. Previously,
Okay,
we
go.
stressed the importance of Comrade Khrushchev and his breakup with the principles of Leninism. I didn't have enough time to mention the crackdown in Budapest, so I will mention it shortly. We can see a clear pattern of Khrushchev opposing Leninist ideas, such as self-determination, national determination of its state. Furthermore, we can see here that he supports peaceful transition and opposes revolutionaries. Let's see what Lenin had to say and how it contradicts with the Khrushchevite thought. I quote, "The argument that Marx in the 70s granted the possibility of a peaceful transition to socialism in England and America is the argument of a sophist, or to put it bluntly, of a swindler, who juggles it with quotations and references. First, Marx regarded this as possibility an exception even then. Secondly, in those days, monopoly of capitalism imperialism did not exist yet. Thirdly, in England and America, there was no military then, and as
How
is
already
now,
debunked
serving the chief apparatus of the bourgeois state machine. Now, the leaders of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union have the impudence to say that the October Revolution was the most bloodless of all revolutions and was accomplished almost peacefully. Their assertions are totally contrary to the historical facts. How can they face the revolutionary martyrs who shed their blood and sacrificed their lives to create the world's first socialist state? When we point out that the world history was thus so far produced no precedent for peaceful transitions from capitalism to socialism, the leaders of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union quibble, saying that practical experience exists of the achievement of the socialist country revolution in peaceful form, and citing their eyes to all the facts. They state Hungary in 1919, the dictatorship of the proletariat was established in peaceful means, something that is falseful. We can see what Bakunin has to say. Belakun. The Communist Party of Hungary was founded in November 1918. The newborn party immediately plunged into revolutionary struggle and proclaimed the slogans of social revolution: disarm the bourgeoisie, arm the proletariat, establish Soviet power. That's what Belakun has to say. Furthermore, let's quote a book here from Belakun. From the day of the founding of the Communist Party to the taking of power, armed clashes with the organs of bourgeois power occurred with increasing frequency. Starting on December 12, 1913, when the armed Budapest garrison came out of the streets of demonstrations against war ministers of the provisional government, there was probably not a single day on which the press failed to report sanguinary clashes between the revolutionary workers and the soldiers and armed units of the government forces, and in particular of the police. The communists organized numerous uprisings not only in Budapest but in provinces as well. The leaders of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union are telling glaring lie when they say that the Hungarian Revolution was an example of peaceful transitions. So we do not have a peaceful transition in any parts of the capitalist world. The dictatorship of the proletariat can only exist when there is a militant uprising in which the workers are taking the state and the state apparatus from the bourgeois powers. And that's pretty much it. I think I
Yeah, your time is up now.
All right, great. I spent all my time. Thank you all.
Okay.
Can I reply to that now?
No, we're gonna do the free-form replies before the closing statement.
Of course.
So we got peaceful transition out on the state of the people, which Karmat Hallis, I think you begin first now, right?
Fair enough.
Wait, Karmat King begun last time. I lost track.
That's fair enough. I can do that.
Okay, Comrade Hallis, when you're ready, you can begin.
Give
It's
me a
on
minute.
the state of the whole people now. You may begin. When you're
Let's
ready.
see
of
how.
course.
Okay, I'm starting now.
Okay.
Let's see how the dictatorship of the proletariat we transition to the state of the whole people. On June 4, 1977, the Soviet Union published a draft of its new constitution and proclaimed the article that the Soviet Union of Socialist Republics is a socialist state of the whole people. Such was the first constitutional expression of this political ideological phenomenon and capped the work begun in October 1961 in the 22nd Party Congress of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union. The roots of this issue, however, were established as early as 1956 and were subsequently covered by mounds of theory. In reality, though, their foundation appears to be a very political texture grounded in the post-Stalin leadership of the Soviet Union. Traditionally, the Soviet leadership has been composed by two fundamental groups, which themselves may be broken down to further subgroups, reflecting varying ages, backgrounds, and affiliations. The first of these groups deals in the realm of politics and is made up of the Soviet politirki, the men in this system whose principal aim is action. In contrast, the primary concern of this second group is theory. The men in this group are party ideologues, specialists in propaganda and doctrinal matters. They are the men of thought. The relations arising with and between these groups, however, are not simple as this picture seems to indicate. In fact, are often highly complex and are intimately related with decision making. It will be therefore my task to examine these relations with regard to the Soviet leadership of the late 50s and early 60s and to investigate their role in the decision to introduce communist ideology, the concept of all people state. So let's see what happened here. We have a socialist state of the Soviet Union And we have Khrushchev destroying the dictatorship of the proletariat in favor of the state of the whole people and the party of the entire people. At the 22nd Congress of the Communist Party, we see that the revisionist Khrushchev abolished the dictatorship of the proletariat behind the camouflage of the state of the whole people, changed the proletarian character of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, and paved the way to the restoration of capitalism behind the full-scale communist reconstruction. In this proposal concerning the general line of the International Communist Manifesto, in 1963, the Central Committee of China pointed out that this most absurd theory and extremely harmful in practice to substitute the state of the whole people for the state of the dictatorship of the proletariat and the party of the entire people for the vanguard party and proletariat. We see this as a contradiction of Leninism, in which Lenin established clearly that we can only have a vanguard that will lead the Communist Party and the masses. Marx never spoke about the state of the whole people. Marx intentionally mentioned that the stage between the capitalist and the communist slash socialist model is going to happen in the dictatorship of the proletariat. Furthermore, we see that this was a coup d'état against Stalinism and against the principles of Marxism. We see that the membership of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union between Stalin's rule, which was at 65.3% manual workers, had dropped to 32% under Khrushchev. We see a change between the communist composition between Soviet democracy and bureaucracy. And we see that Khrushchev staged a coup d'état that put in power white-collar workers and the bureaucracy that is often quoted as a new class, thus a system of state capitalism and not socialism. He gave power to his closest allies and subverted the socialist state. I guess that's all the time I have. We will speak more about it in the end.
Alright, it's my time now.
Yes, we're going to the next subject now.
No, I didn't even talk
you didn't.
about...
Yeah, you didn't address it. Go on.
Okay, well, state of the whole people is actually Stalin's idea. In source 18, Stalin says that class antagonism, the bourgeoisie, kulaks, and all their elements had been abolished in the USSR. Stalin says that in the USSR there are only two classes left, workers and peasants, and a social strata, the intelligentsia. He said that in 1936. This is what state of the whole people is. The belief that class antagonism had been abolished in 1936 this is what state of the whole people is. The belief that class antagonism has been abolished in 1936 in the USSR's case. In 1938, Stalin even said that the dictatorship of the proletariat was abolished in the USSR, according to page 141 of source 19. Khrushchev actually said the same thing. He said in the 22nd Congress of the CPSU, aka source 20 and source 21, but also in the secret speech that there is no more class antagonism in the USSR. No bourgeoisie, no kulaks, only workers and peasants. So it's the same thing that Stalin said. There was no dictatorship of the proletariat anymore, so as there was no class antagonism anymore. A dictatorship of the proletariat is the oppression of the bourgeoisie by the proletariat. So how? How can there be a dictatorship of the bourgeoisie if there is no bourgeoisie? How can there be a bourgeoisie? How can there be a dictatorship of the proletariat when there is no bourgeoisie? Though Khrushchev also said that the dictatorship of the proletariat is necessary as long as class antagonism and class struggle exist. So this is completely Marxist. He said that the dictatorship of the proletariat is the only way that socialism can be achieved. Also, the amount of workers and peasants in the party increased under Khrushchev and Brezhnev, whereas the amount of white-collar workers decreased, according to page 90 of Albert Zimansky's book Is the Red Flag Flying? In 1952, under Stalin, 85% of the party consisted of white-collar workers, whereas 15% were workers and peasants. In 1961, under Khrushchev, on the other hand, 48% of the party consisted of white-collar workers, whereas 52% consisted of workers and peasants. In 1976, under Brezhnev, 44.5% of the party consisted of white-collar workers, whereas 55.5% of the party consisted of workers and peasants. Also, I'd like to mention that Lenin had a lot of mistakes in his theories. He said that socialism can't exist under a dictatorship of the proletariat, and that socialism is the evolution of classes. So, by rejecting Stone's theory of state of the whole people, and by saying that the dictatorship of the proletariat existed throughout the entirety of the Stone era, you're saying that it was never truly socialist. Also, according to Khrushchev, the state kept a working class character. Also, there was no coup Hellas. Finbow just misquoted an American journalist called Harrison Salisbury. Harrison Salisbury just said that there he said that it is a fleeting thought of there being a coup. There was none. Also, the tanks that were in Moscow were there to protect Stone's body. Okay, anyway, how much time do I have?
I'll check right now. You have like, okay, so you finish at just a good time because you had a few seconds left. Okay, so next
All right,
up,
let's move on to the next subject,
which was New Virgin Lands campaign.
Yes.
So, Comrade King, I guess you begin now, right?
Fair enough.
All right, tell me when you want me. You ready?
What?
All right, go.
Okay, anyway, I think I know what Alice will say now. Okay, so the Sovnarkhoze didn't actually decentralize planning and didn't destroy planning. In fact, according to source 25, page 352, central planning was conducted by the Gosplan, and it continued to be so, and it exaggerated even. And according to the same page, the economic regions of the USSR couldn't do anything without state approval, aka the approval of Moscow. Also, source 25 is Alec Nov's book, An Economic History of the USSR. Also, what is the economic reform which restored capitalism in the USSR, Hellas? What is it called? You always say that capitalism was restored in 1956. What reform restored it? Please tell me. What is it called? You can't name the reform because, in fun fact, there was no restoration of capitalism. There was no such reform. And in fact, Mao supported the crushing of Molotov's coup in 1957 and said in 1957 that the USSR's economic, domestic, and foreign policy has improved since Stalin died. Isn't that ironic, considering that you claim that the USSR restored capitalism in 1956, criticized the Sovnarkhoze, called the state of the whole people and peaceful coexistence revisionist, which according to Mao and the Maoists became revisionist in the 20th Congress of the CPSU in 1956 and so on. Well, anyway, also, I know that you will address this. Private housing actually already existed under Stalin, according to source 31. 90% of housing was private in 1937 even. According to Stalin, class antagonism, the bourgeoisie, and kulaks were abolished in 1936, so that's funny. Also, there was no stagnation. In the worst period of the USSR's economic growth, the economy grew at 3.5% from 1981 to 1985, according to Soviet estimates, which are the most reliable and best estimates, which Maoists use for Stalin's USSR, by the way. Also, more developed countries have lower growth rates, yet, and whereas worse countries, more underdeveloped countries, have higher growth rates because they are bad. So if you are more underdeveloped, you are more likely to have a higher growth rate than a developed country like Japan. This is why excuse my language, shitholes like Libya, Ethiopia, and Bangladesh have the highest economic growth rates in the world. Okay, yeah.
All right, thanks for your time. I am going now to go on the subject. Please set the timer.
And it started.
All right, so Lenin said that the transition of from capitalism to communism represents an entire historical epoch. Until this epoch has determined, the exploiters inevitably cherish the hopes of the restoration and the hopes of convert attempts to restorations. The abolition of classes requires a long, difficult, stubborn class struggle which, after the overthrow of the power of the capital, after the destruction of the bourgeois state, after the establishment of the dictatorship of the proletariat, does not disappear, but merely changes its forms in many respects and becomes more fierce. That's about my following statements that I didn't finish. Now let's talk about the Virgin Lands reforms. We have Khrushchev, which spent 30.7 million rubles on the Virgin Lands campaign, and at the same time the state produced grain. We have in 1956 had a poor harvest. Much less new land was put into cultivation after 56. However, the harvest of 1956 proved to be more successful in the entire Virgin Land campaign, and the largest harvest in the Soviet history at that point. Grain output of the Virgin Lands increased. In 1957, though, harvest was a failure. Virgin Land grain output decreased 40% from 1956 and 18% for the total Soviet Union grain output. In 1959, 58 and 59, there was almost no new land plowed up in Virgin Land regions. In 1958, harvest was a particular good one, reaching 58 million grain, only 8% below the record 62 million tons set in 1956. In 1951, growing season was extremely rainy, causing many difficulties. However, the harvest was not disappointing. It reached 54 million tons, 6% lower than 1958. We see that the agricultural output of the Soviet Union fell dramatically after 1956 with the reforms of Khrushchev. In total, they lost 8 million tons of grain in a record time of 3 years. The reforms of Khrushchev in corn and agricultural output destroyed the Soviet Union. Now, you asked me a question on the restoration of the bourgeoisie. Well, although the Soviet Union didn't open its markets, obviously, but there was a restoration of class antagonism, and we see that the Communist Party of the Soviet Union goes from Soviet democracy and at the hands of manual workers to the bureaucracy that compromised the majority, actually 51% under Khrushchev, of the Communist Party, while the bureaucracy, white-collar workers, were only 14% under Stalin and 27% under Lenin. We see a massive increase on this, and this correlates with antagonisms, class antagonisms, and the creation of a new class, a bureaucratic class in the Soviet state. Lastly, we should stretch out that this is where all the lies began about the Soviet Union under Khrushchev, and we have the lies of state capitalism. We have Gulag Archipelago being printed. We have the West opposing socialism, and of course the Western communists seeing the Soviet Union as a dangerous power that invaded.
Time is up to finish up.
A dangerous power that invaded fellow allied communist states in Hungary and Prague in Czechoslovakia in 1968 under Brezhnev. We see Soviet leaders ruling as Roman emperors, unlike general secretaries, and we see an era of stagnation and an era of gerontocracy. The actual GDP growth under Stalin was 6%, while the GDP growth under Brezhnev was 3%. And you may say that this is because the Soviet Union was not fully industrialized, but this is false. Actual shitholes, as you mentioned, do not have a stable growth. While under Stalin there was a stable growth of a total growth of 6% annually, and there is no recessions under Stalin after the collectivization. So I don't see how you stress your points. Quote, shitholes, unquote, do not have a stable growth, but rather a very strong growth, and then they keep dropping, boom, crash, recession, growth, and so on and so on. I finished.
Okay. Anyway, so we will now talk about.
We are going to make our closing statements, and then we are going to answer questions from the people. And then
okay, but because like Comrade can want a sort of free form to answer any
Yeah, you
contest.
even said that we'll have a more
Yeah.
free form at the
We
end.
will freeform at the end, but we should prioritize the people's questions because they have a lot of questions, and then we can freeform as long as we want.
Alright, let me just
Alright.
set the timer. So who wants to go for the closing statement
I guess
first?
I will begin.
Alright, give me 1 minute, please. Alright, you may begin when you're ready.
All right. All right, my audience. We see the importance of Khrushchevite reforms that destroy the legacy of Lenin and Stalin. We see a Soviet Union who drives away from Soviet democracy and goes towards its eventual collapse. We have the rise of the white collar party members, and we have gerontocracy, political and economic stagnation, and the collapse of the old Soviet order. We see these ambitious general secretaries ruling as Roman emperors rather than leaders of the people, staging coup d'etats one after another. And even in 1957, excuse me, we have the anti-party group that tries to oust Khrushchev from power. In fact, democratically, they voted 7-4 votes, in which Malenkov, Molotov, Kaganovich, Buganin, Voroshilov, Vunskin, and Saburov supported, while Khrushchev was only backed by himself, Mikoyan, Suslov, and Kirichenko. But Khrushchev refused to step down. We see a dictator that sends the army to clear any opposition and stages an internal coup d'etat with Marshal and Defense Minister Georgy Zhukov. Molotov was sent as ambassador to Mongolia, Malenkov was sent to Kazakhstan, Kaganovich was sent to Urals, and Stepinlov was sent to Kyrgyzstan. It is quite
Alright,
funny
your
how...
timer is up. Just finish up.
It is funny how he accused Stalin of exiling his opponents while he does exactly the same thing. It is quite funny how he accused Stalin of dictatorship while himself, Stalin, was actually 3 times resigned from his position, while Khrushchev, when democratically removed from his place in a vote of 7-4 in the Central Committee, refused to step down and instigated an internal coup d'etat. Khrushchev's dangerous revisionism led to the eventual collapse of the Soviet Union. The dictatorship of the proletariat was never restored in the Soviet Union, and eventually it became a capitalist state. Thank you for watching, and at the end, stay tuned because we are going to answer your questions, and there will be a poll on who won the debate. Comrade King, your closing statements, please.
Okay.
Let me just set the timer. Comrade King, you may begin.
Okay, again, Hellas, the peaceful transition to socialism is possible according to Marx, Engels, Lenin, and Stalin. I already debunked you with that on what you said about that. Also, revolution and the dictatorship of the proletariat is the only way to transition to socialism according to Khrushchev. Khrushchev, just like Marx, Engels, Lenin, and Stalin, claimed that the peaceful transition to socialism is possible, but not the only way. And again, Lenin had a lot of theoretical mistakes. He claimed that under the dictatorship of the proletariat, socialism can't exist. You're essentially saying that the USSR was never socialist if it didn't abolish its dictatorship of the proletariat in 1936. Also, Hellas, if you use the crushing of the Hungary uprising as proof of Khrushchev's revisionism because it violates self-determination, you're being hypocritical because Stalin invaded Romania. Also, I do agree with you that the corn campaign was a disaster. However, it would have worked if Khrushchev didn't plant corn in Siberia. Also, the secret speech was never supposed to be published. It was taken by a Mossad agent in their archipelago. Wasn't published until 1990. And also, Khrushchev praised Stalin. He said that you can't be a Marxist without being a Stalinist, so he can't be compared to Trotsky. And also, recessions didn't exist under Khrushchev and Brezhnev either, and the economic growth was also stable. And also,
Your time is
can you
up. Just finish up.
okay? Can you show evidence to Khrushchev calling Stalin a dictator? Khrushchev praised Stalin for denouncing his own code in the 1920s and early 1930s. However, later Stalin supported his own personality code. He, for example, signed degrees to build statues after himself in 1951 and praised himself as a genius in 1948 in in an edited version of his own biography. And also, Molotov's coup was opposed by Mao, and the Central Committee didn't vote 7-4, the Presidium did. And also, Khrushchev restored collective leadership in around 1957, and Malenkov was actually called a revisionist by him because he wanted to put the main focus on the small market and light industry, just like Beria. And also Molotov, Malenkov, and Beria all wanted to join NATO. And also, they understand already 85% of the CPSU consisted of white collar workers. In 1952, according to page 90 of Is the Red Flag Flying? That's Albert Zemansky's book. So, if you're calling the bureaucracy under Khrushchev and Brezhnev a new bourgeoisie, then you should say the same about Stalin's USSR, because it was even worse under Stalin. There were more white collar workers under Stalin in the party than under Khrushchev and Brezhnev. Okay, to give an example, in 1961, under Khrushchev, 48%
Can
of
you please
Republican.
finish up your point? You've been going behind on your
All
time.
right, all right, all right, all right. I finished now.
Okay, thank you. Now, with our closing statements done, we're going to be taking questions from the
We are
comment
going
section.
to reply to our questions.
And then after that, Comrade King wants to do more of a free form to answer any contest, like what's it called? To answer anything that Hellas brought up and vice
Alright, fair
versa in
enough.
case they disagree.
Alright, you can go vote in the link of the description. I have pinned in the comment. Please vote. Your opinion matters. Μπορείτε να ψηφίσετε στο link που έχω βάλει πάνω καρφιτσωμένο. Η γνώμη σας μετράει. Ποιος θεωρείτε ότι νίκησε το debate. Alright, now I'm going to answer questions. Comrade King, you can do the same. I will start with Greek comments. Αλέξανδρος Οικονόμους is saying Comrade, είναι αλήθεια ότι ο Χρουστόφ είχε πολύ καλές σχέσεις με τον Kennedy, which means is it true that Khrushchev had very good relations with Kennedy? This is actually true. They had exceptional relations with each other. They met multiple times, drink together, and they mention in their diaries that they had a very strong and cordial relationship with each other. Fiero Angela Raquem says, what about the 1953 revolt in Germany? Does that prove that Stalin was a social imperialist like Khrushchev? I will leave this to Comrade King. Comrade King, do you want to say something about the East German uprising?
When was it again?
In 1953?
In 1953, Malenkov was in power, not Khrushchev.
He was he asks if Stalin was a social imperialist like Khrushchev.
Well, a social imperialist is someone who is a capitalist imperialist in practice, and a socialist in fury. Essentially, well, Stalin was not a capitalist, and Khrushchev and Brezhnev weren't either. So they were not what is it called, social imperialists. However, I'd still like to reply again to your point about Hungary and Czechoslovakia from before. Hungary and Czechoslovakia were revisionist, and I think it's kind of ironic how you call Stalin not social imperialist, despite Stalin invading Romania. So that's kind of funny.
Alright. I would like to say that Stalin was dead by 1953. July, it was something done by Malenkov, not Stalin. Stalin did not invade Romania. Actually, Romania became a US ally and Soviet ally, SU ally, and they joined the fight against Nazism with two armies of their own. I don't understand what you refer here.
The Soviets were not allied with Romania in 1940. Proof.
Oh, you mean about Moldavia? Well, that was a strategical point that.
That doesn't justify it. If you're calling Post-Stalinist USSR revisionist for invading Czechoslovakia and Hungary for revisionism, then you're and Stalin not, then you're being very hypocritical.
All right. I'm gonna see more questions now, and we will freeform at the end. Don't worry. Stavros Paparounas says Turkey was in the side of Axis, but they proclaimed war in Axis 2 days before the war ended. This is correct. Turkey had a non-aggression pact with Germany. They were never a member of Axis, and they didn't declare war in Germany in 1945. Panos Venardo says γνώμη για τον Trotsky, opinion about Trotsky. Η γνώμη μου για τον Trotsky είναι γνωστή σε πολλά live. Μπορούμε να ξανακάνουμε live πάνω σε αυτό στα ελληνικά. Θεωρώ ότι ο Trotsky ήταν ένας επικίνδυνος λαϊκιστής και ψευτοδιανοούμενος, ο οποίος ερχόταν από τις μενσεβικές θέσεις, το κόμμα των μενσεβίκων, και εναντιονόταν στην πολιτική των Πολσεβίκων. Άλλαξε φυσικά το allegiance του και βλέπουμε στο τέλος τον Τρότσκι να... Ο Λένιν αποκαλεί τον Τρότσκι πολιτική πόρνη. Δεν έχω καθόλου θετική γνώμη για τον Τρότσκι. Alright, let's continue. Are people here asking when we'll have a live stream again? If you want a live stream, we can do it again tomorrow if everyone is available. We should talk about socialism in 21st century. Will everyone be available?
Maybe, most likely. It depends on the time.
Alright, and we will invite our moderator Kazariko as well. Comrade King, you can scroll into the chat. If you find any question, we can reply it before we freeform.
The problem is that all of them are in Greek, and I don't.
No, there are a lot
Greek.
of them in English.
There are only 2 or 3 in English.
Okay, you can answer them. You can answer in English ones, and I will answer in Greek ones.
All right. There is one question. It says, "What would you eat?" I'd say чебуреки.
Okay. Ποια χώρα στον κόσμο είναι πιο κοντά στο να γίνει κομμουνιστική? Θα έλεγα καμία χώρα, γιατί πρέπει παγκοσμίως να υπάρχουν σοσιαλιστικά καθεστώτα πριν φτάσουμε στον κομμουνισμό. Η μόνη σοσιαλιστική χώρα αυτή την περίοδο είναι η Κούβα. Φυσικά. Ο Σταύρος Παπαρούνας λέει ποια θα είναι η έκβαση του πολέμου αν και η Ρωσία πήγαινε με τον άξονα. Αυτό φυσικά είναι θεωρία φαντασίας. Δεν υπήρχε καμία περίπτωση η Ρωσία να πήγαινε με τον άξονα. Αλλά αν πήγαινε με τον άξονα, θα υπήρχε μια ευρασιατική νίκη της Ρώσο-αξονικής παράταξης, whatever. Σύντροφοι, είναι αλήθεια ότι, ο Μίτσος λέει, σύντροφοι, είναι αλήθεια ότι είχε κάνει παρέλαση ο κόκκινος στρατός με τους ναζιστές στην κατεχόμενη Πολωνία? Όχι, αυτό δεν είναι αλήθεια. Υπάρχει αυτή η πεποίθηση επειδή συναντηθήκανε στο Μπρέσλι-Λιστόφσκ μετά τη νίκη στην Πολωνία και ουσιαστικά οι δύο στρατοί συναντηθήκανε. Δεν υπήρχε δηλαδή διοργανωμένη παρέλαση μαζί. Αλλά είναι μία από τις φωτογραφίες που συναντηθήκαν ουσιαστικά η Γερμανία από τη Δύση και η Σοβιετική από την Ανατολή. Ο Αλέξανδρος Οικονόμους λέει και οι δύο τελευταία είναι αλήθεια. Ο κόκκινος στρατός έκανε παρέλαση με τα ναζίδια. Το απάντησα παραπάνω. 2. Θα περάσουμε την Αιτχόβεν. Η Αιτχόβεν είναι δυνατή ομάδα, αλλά δεν είμαστε ΠΑΟΚ. Ο Ολυμπιακός είναι μια ευρωπαϊκή ομάδα. Χρειαζόμαστε τις νίκες. Θα περάσουμε την Αιτχόβεν, πιστεύω. Και χρειαζόμαστε τις νίκες για το coefficient της Ελλάδας. Η σφαγή του Κατίν ποιος την έκανε? Έχουν απαντήσει οι ιστορικοί πάνω σε αυτό. Εμείς πιστεύουμε ακράδαντα ότι η σφαγή του Κατίν έγινε από ναζιστές. Και τέλος ο Σταύρος Παπαρούνας. Φυσικά βρήκανε γερμανικές σφαίρες κτλ. Προσπαθώ να το κρατήσω, να μην πλατιάσω. Θα κάνουμε και σε αυτό πάλι μια συζήτηση αν επιθυμείτε. Ο Σταύρος Παπαρούνας. Ναι, αλλά η Πολωνία τη χώρισαν. Τη χώρισαν φυσικά και τη χώρισαν. Υπάρχουν πολλές περιπτώσεις που η ουδετερότητα μιας χώρας παραβιάστηκε από μαχόμενες πλευρές. Αυτό έγινε στο Δεύτερο Παγκόσμιο Πόλεμο και φυσικά από τους Γερμανούς, αλλά έγινε και από τους συμμάχους. Οι Βρετανοί κατέλαβαν το Ιράν και την Ισλανδία. Η Σοβιετική Ένωση εισέβαλε στην Φινλανδία που ήταν ουδέτερη. Είναι ένα γεγονός που συμβαίνει στον πόλεμο. Οι μαχόμενες πλευρές καταλαμβάνουν στρατηγικές, η Ρουμανία για παράδειγμα που είπε προηγουμένως, καταλαμβάνουν στρατηγικά περάσματα και περιοχές για να διασφαλίσουν τη νίκη τους. Μπορείτε να θεωρείτε καταδικαστέωσης, αλλά μιλάμε για μια παγκόσμια σύραξη, ένα παγκόσμιο πόλεμο και για την νίκη την ήττα του ναζισμού, έτσι. Ο Ολυμπιακός μέχρι το κόκαλο. Τι ομάδα είναι ο King? Alright. Thanks for watching. Okay, last one. Γνώμη για την εισβολή της Σοβιετικής Ένωσης στις Βαλτικές χώρες. Δεν ήταν ακριβώς εισβολή. Οι βαλτικές χώρες είχαν υπογράψει συμφωνία με τη Σοβιετική Ένωση να τους προστατεύσει από την ναζιστική επέκταση. Το 1940 έγιναν. Η Σοβιετική Ένωση ουσιαστικά κατέλαβε αυτές τις χώρες. Δεν υπήρξε εισβολή ούτε κήρυξη πολέμου. Είχαν περάσει στη συμμαχία της Σοβιετικής Ένωσης. Ισχύει ότι η Αμερική έδωσε εφόδια στην ΕΣΥ κατά τη μάχη του Σταλίνγκραντ. Ναι, ισχύει, αλλά το θέμα είναι ότι δεν έδωσαν αρκετά εφόδια για να αλλάξει η ροπή του πολέμου. Η ροπή του πολέμου άλλαξε το 1942-1943. Και το Lend-Lease των Αμερικανών ήταν σχετικά μικρό. Μέχρι τη μάχη του Στάλινγκραντ είχαν δοθεί περίπου το 1/10 του συνολικού Lend-Lease. Alright, σας ευχαριστώ πάρα πολύ. Thanks for watching. We can now freeform for 10 minutes with Comrade King and we will end the stream. Alright, Comrade King, do you want to ask me any question?
Yeah, sure. I was already telling you stuff before the I was already asking you stuff in the closing statements.
Mm-hmm.
Can you show evidence to Khrushchev comes down a dictator? Also, Khrushchev praised Stalin for denouncing his own cult in the 1920s and early 1930s. However, Stalin supported his personality cult later. You can see that by reading his edited version of his own biography. In the edited version of his biography, he said he called himself a genius in the last chapter, and also
Comrade King. I didn't say that free market capitalism was restored, but class antagonisms in the Soviet Union collapsed completely.
Where's your proof?
The proof is that the white collar intelligentsia and the intelligentsia were compromised the majority of the party leadership under Khrushchev. And I've sent you this chart. It's from
Hellas, I know that chart. You can look under the chart. This is actually page 90 of is the red flag flying? And
yes, but I'm quoting T.H. Rigby, Communist Party membership in the Soviet Union, page 327, and the current digest of the Soviet press.
20 you know how much of the party consisted of white collar workers in 1952?
I don't have the sources for 1952, but I have the sources for 1956.
I have sources for 1952. In 1952, it was 85%. So was there class antagonism?
That's impossible.
That's possible.
How is it possible? That's impossible.
No, in World War II, a lot of blue collar workers and peasants died who were party members. So a lot of peasants who were in the party and workers died, and 85% of the party became white collar worker. That you can read about that yourself. Is in Albert Zemansky's book. It's the red flag flying.
All right. Anything else before we tire our viewers?
Sure. How is Khrushchev similar to Trotsky? Khrushchev literally said that you can't be a Marxist without being a Stalinist.
Yes, of course he said that, but his actions speak louder than words. He denounced Stalin. He removed his body from the Kremlin. Furthermore, he even removed the Stalin from Soviet textbooks. The people were not allowed to learn about Stalin, so on and so on.
They were allowed to learn Stalin. They even made a pamphlet on the 19th anniversary of his birthday where they praised him, but also criticized him. Wait, can you still hear me?
Yes, of course, I'm replying to comments.
Okay. You said that recessions didn't exist under Stalin and that economic growth was stable.
That's correct. I've linked the economic growth.
How does this not apply to Khrushchev's and Brezhnev's rules?
Do you see the chart about Brezhnev I sent you? It dropped by 2%. And these are according Soviet estimates. According to Western estimates, the GDP of the Soviet Union grew by 0.6% annually.
Yeah, I know. Growth slowed down because
yes,
the
but
Soviet Union
I'm using Soviet estimates, and they say it dropped to 2%, which is still not a big growth. Like the United States of America this the previous year had a growth of almost 3%. So it doesn't it doesn't invalidate. Yeah.
According to Soviet estimates, in the worst period of the Soviet Union's economic growth from 1981 to 1985, the economy grew at 3.5%. That's not stagnation. Stagnation is growing under 2%.
Stagnation at 2%. All right.
Yeah, stagnation
Okay,
is
at least
growth in the
according to Western estimates, there was a massive stagnation, even
yeah,
recession.
and Western estimates are they didn't have complete access to the statistics of the Soviet Union, and also the West couldn't publish anything without state approval in the Cold War, and that's still the that still applies a lot today. And also you said that um, you said that peaceful transition to socialism isn't possible according to Marx, Engels, and Lenin and Stalin,
It
right?
is correct because Marx only said in particular circumstances, exceptions almost, and that includes the United States of America and the United Kingdom. He didn't speak about something happening global. And from a 21st century point of view, I do agree with that. I think only very advanced countries like the United States could ever transition into socialism, if possible, and that doesn't include third world countries.
Well, Khrushchev said he said that you need a revolution to transition to socialism and the dictatorship of the proletariat. However, it can be peaceful, but if the bourgeoisie resist, then it must be violent. That's very Marxist. How is that not Marxist? If the
The
bourgeoisie
point is
resist,
that
then it becomes violent.
Khrushchev about peaceful coexistence and peaceful transition, his point of view was that it's an economic struggle between the United States and the Soviet Union. He stretched it that they must surpass the United States, and somehow this would create a proletarian revolution in the United States. He didn't understand dialectics, and he didn't understand that for socialism to come to America, it's something completely internal. And
No, he did understand that. He even said so once.
when was that?
In this, he said that in the 20th Congress of the CPSU.
All right, let me find the exact quote.
What did he say?
Yeah.
Wait 1 second.
Okay. Here it says that.
Okay, here.
Okay, go on
Wait.
first.
He once said in the 20th Congress, the stated provision fury completely overturned the notorious formulation of the question of exporting the revolution. It was Marxism, in contrast to all bourgeois ideological
Okay.
concepts, that proved that revolutions occur not by order, not because of the desires of the individuals, but because of the natural course of the historical process. Of course, Lenin pointed out, there are people who think that revolution can be born in a foreign country by order, by agreement. These people are either madmen or provocators. We know that they can't be made either by order or by agreement.
All right.
That they grow when tens of millions of people come to the conclusion that they can't continue to live like this. He literally
Okay.
said
Let me quote.
that you can't export revolution.
Yeah. Let me quote Boulder
He
here.
also said somewhere else
We
that
have Browder saying.
revolution
Can,
only
can I
must
go on?
happen eternally.
Okay. Go finish.
I'm trying to find the quote right now.
Yeah, but you're taking too long. So
Wait one
Browder
second.
here. I will take just a minute. Browder here says. He wrote in 1960, Khrushchev now adopted the heresy for which I was kicked out of the Communist Party in Germany in 1945. And he added that Khrushchev's new policy is almost word for word the same line I advocated 15 years ago. So my crime has become, at least for the moment, the new orthodoxy. Khrushchev himself admitted at the end that the Tito clique belong to one and the same idea and are quite by the same theory. In the nature of the case, Khrushchev revisionism is even more pernicious than the revisionism of Bernstein, Kautsky, Browder, and Tito. Why? Because the Soviet Union is the first socialist state, a large country in the socialist camp and the native land of Leninism. The CPSU is a large party created by Lenin, and the international communist movement enjoys prestige and share in history. Khrushchev is exploiting his position as the leader of the CPSU and of the Soviet Union to push through his revisionist line. So we have Browder who speak about peaceful transition and peaceful coexistence first, and himself says that the beliefs of Khrushchev are identical to his.
So
So
you're saying that
yes,
Khrushchev
Khrushchev was a
rejected the
Browderist and a Kautskyist, and he followed these deviations who are not
you,
aligned
s-
with Marx-Leninism.
so you're saying that he rejected internationalism and international revolution.
Yes, because we have Errol Bauder, who was in the.
I already told you before. In 1958, he
Okay,
said the following:
how do
in
you
advocating.
how do you explain that Bauder literally said that he was kicked out of the Communist Party of America for basically the same reason that Khrushchev now made it the new orthodoxy of socialism, basically? How do you explain that?
You said that he was kicked out of the American Communist Party.
American Communist Party, yes.
He was Soviet. Why would he join the American Communist Party?
So you see, we have a transition. Anyway, this can go on for hours. I will cut the stream here. We can continue talking to each other. Thank you for watching. Make sure to visit to vote on the poll. Visit Comrade King's channel. All the sources will be posted on the description. Thank you for watching and stay tuned. Tomorrow we are going to open a new discussion about socialism. Thank you for watching, my dear viewers. I'll see you next time.